Okay, Tivoli, good evening. I'm your mayor, Joel Griffith. I'm here to welcome you to the second of 3 public engagement, public input sessions that are a mandatory component of an LWRP update process. And I think everyone here knows that stands for Local Waterfront Revitalization. And then program, not plan. But anyway, sometimes we say both. Who was here in June at the first meeting we did? And who was not? Okay, cool. So we got some overlap. That's cool. Good. So yes, thank you all for being here. The LWRP is a giant, important document in which a municipality puts its intentions and vision for its present and future. We had one from 2003? Yeah. So we had an old one?
91.
91. Yeah. I get confused with the comp plan sometimes. So. Yeah, it was old, and the Department of State pointed it out to us, and it does cost some money, so we wanted a grant to get started, and we actually have another grant open application in right now to get more funding so we can keep moving with this thing. And in those old documents, I know Sarah's going to talk a little bit about what was in the last one to give you a sense of what we're trying to do here. And so I'd like to turn it over to the committee chair, Sarah M. Bowden, who will tell you about what the committee's been up to since June. And again, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. It's really nice to see some new people and some repeat customers. Yeah, so just to give you a sense, Michelle and I were thinking it would be cool to, well, first I want to have everybody who's been on the committee just like kind of wave your hand just so we can get a sense. We got 3 committee members here. There's about 5 other people, Dan Hubble, Joan Lovis, and I think I'm going to forget somebody else. But anyway, folks who have been coming in and taking part in our work. So the first phase of the public outreach is really to get your feedback on the writing that the committee did around the big inventory and analysis section, which goes through sort of the history of Tivoli and kind of paints a picture of like where we are right now. So when you look at that document, it should feel very familiar to you. You should see your village reflected in it, whether you live on Woods Road like I do, or Broadway, or anywhere around. Then the next section, so once we get a sense of the feedback and then the sort of the priorities for like, now let's cast forward. So that's what we did in our June meeting and what we did in a survey that was circulated over the summer. Let's cast our minds forward about 30 years, somewhere in there, what kind of projects, what kind of priorities do we see for the village going forward? And now we take that and we put it into the next section of the LWRP called the Projects and Policies. Is that what it's called?
Projects and land uses and projects.
Land uses and projects, okay. So it's a little bit more concrete and kind of gives you more of a sense of like, what do we want to see accomplished in Tivoli in the next, however long. There's no real specific timeline, but we kind of picked 30 years because it's been more than 30 years since the last one happened. So Michelle and I thought it would be interesting for you to just hear some of the things that were proposed the first time around in 1991, just to get a sense of like what happens with an LWRP, like does it actually help set some priorities. So one project that was listed was to provide riverfront access. So at the time there was no access at all, and since then of course we know that Tivoli has purchased land and done work to keep that land from eroding. It did want like a new boat launch and so on, so we didn't quite get all the things, but we got close. Adaptive reuse of the old firehouse. So I think we can say like that's, which is this right here, right? We're using it, it's very much in use, right? Business district revitalization. Like if you've been trying to park on like Wednesday through Sunday in Tivoli, just to like check your mail or something, you can see. It's revitalized. Check. Village housing. So older houses needing to be restored. I'm getting some of them on the National Register. That happened, as well as having the development, I think was listed in here, right?
Yeah, the Tivoli Acres.
Yeah, that whole thing. So that's done. I thought this was interesting, Memorial Park improvements. So you'll see tonight that's on our project list again. So that's kind of a perennial, right? But at the time that was needed. So like landscaping, that kind of thing at the time. Village road restorations, again, another perennial project. And there was one more, oh, adequate public water supply. So now, we got new wells.
Yeah, since that was
Since
put
then,
in
yeah.
1990, sorry, was it
91?
Yeah.
Thank you. I was a junior in high school, I was not paying attention at the time.
You weren't at the public meetings?
A few years later, the village went out and acquired what are called the Woodmark wells over on West Curly's Corners, which supply half of our water. So in that era, and some of you remember, there was water rationing in the summer and water was taken out of the creek and treated, and so that was a major thing that they went out and found basically 100% more water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sewer improvements were the other one, which are, like happening now, but they are happening, within the range of the first one. And I don't think, it's interesting to see that water system improvements weren't even kind of on that project list, and that happened. So there's also a lot of things that have happened that weren't listed in that old plan, right, or program. So we've done our best to reflect back what we gathered, and the survey response had about 35-ish respondents, and we had a good crowd at our first meeting in June. And so we took all the conversations we had since June, and you can see around, in a little bit, we're gonna have everybody get up and look around, but there's word clouds that Felicia put together. You can sort of see reflected some of the priorities and the dreams that people have, the concerns that people have. And so I do invite you, once we get up in a bit, to really look at them, and you'll see in black there will be the question that we asked on the side or on the top, so you can kind of get a sense of what people were thinking about. Obviously, the boldness or the largeness of the print indicates more people raised that particular issue. Some things that were raised do not fit in an LWRP, because an LWRP is pretty specific to things like land use and development kinds of improvements, and so it doesn't have to be specific to the waterfront, but some things that were raised were things like
Squirrel abatement.
squirrel abatement. Very legitimate concern, but that's not going to go in our LWRP. The Department of State that's not what they're trying to fund here. So what we've done is we've compiled a list of all of those things. Some of them do still show up on these word clouds, but we're compiling a list of all those that were collected, and we are going to send them to the village board so that they don't have plausible deniability that somebody didn't tell them that the squirrels need to be abated or whatever in the year 2023. So they'll have a list of those priorities that everybody gathered, just in case they make it to the priority list, even though it's not an LWRP project. So tonight what we're going to do is we then as a committee took all the ideas and we crafted a list of 17 projects that we think are the ones that fit best in the LWRP sort of mission and program, and that reflect back the priorities that we discovered together as a community. So you'll see them reflected on your handout. If you grabbed a handout, please do grab one if you haven't already. What we're going to do is, I'm not going to read them to you because you can see them right there. But what we're going to do, you can see on the back. In a minute, I'll take questions in a second, but what we're going to do is first we're going to go around and look at the word clouds, just really refresh ourselves on what we're doing here, what the idea is. There's also a nice, beautiful map of Tivoli, and there's a map of our waterfront park plan here, and a path to the waterfront there, two of our main big projects that are on the projects list.
And if I could jump in there, so in June we heard certain things like, we want that park design, for example, or we want that walkway down the hill design. Well, actually some of that stuff has happened. So we pulled the old, this was I think a $50,000 Greenway grant to design the walkway down the hill in 2013. So some of the things we heard about have happened. So they're here being shown so that oh, we can start from here because somebody already did that.
The first piece of them is done, right?
Yeah.
So obviously there is no path yet, but the first part of getting a path has been done. So we wanted to show you that.
So conceptual design, same
with the
thing with
waterfront
the
park.
waterfront park. Yeah.
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to look at those 17, after we kind of refresh ourselves around the room looking at all these things. Refresh ourselves on the project list. If you didn't already read that document that went out with the projects in detail, we have copies for each small group. We're going to break up into small groups. I think with the size we could do maybe three or four, depending. It's nice to have a small group. So you can look at the document together and discuss, there's 3 questions, what stands out to you on this project list? How would you rate the projects in importance? And is there anything still missing here? We're still interested. There's a little table. So what we'd like you to do as a group is kind of rate them. We've kind of put them in roughly what we think might be the priority, but we're kind of curious if maybe you would say number 5 is higher, you know? We'd like to know. So, and then we'll talk about it together. Yeah. Any questions about the process, about what we're doing tonight?
I just want to clarify that actually the list of projects, we didn't rank those yet.
Oh, they're not ranked.
They're
Okay.
not
Those
listed
are random.
on Friday, it's just a list.
Sorry, randomized order.
Clean slate.
Gotcha. Okay.
And about how much time do you want to allow for our little groups before we reconvene as a whole?
Yeah, so what I want you to do is like, first, why don't we, before we even get up, let's kind of make the, when we get up, let's make the chairs into like little groupings. And then get up and walk around and vote with your feet. When you kind of feel like you're done with the word clouds, go back to your group and settle in. We're going to give you about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll kind of check in after 15 and see how people are.
Once we're seated in our
Once we're
groups.
seated, yep. And then after that, we'll do a report back together for as long as it takes to get to the priorities, but I don't think it will, yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question, maybe it's getting there somewhere, but what's the funding for these projects?
Yeah, so it's a state grant, maybe you can say more about it.
Sure, so
Basically,
I
the
think
state wants us to do these, and so they then provide funding if you
Okay.
apply for a grant.
So there's funding for this LWRP update process, but I think your question was on this list,
Sorry.
how are we going to fund extending sewer to Clay Hill Road, et cetera?
Great
So
question.
basically, that stuff is not identified.
It will be in a subsequent section.
Yeah, so in a subsequent section, we can talk about what the possibilities are for funding these projects. The thing that we've been trying to say is like, this is still very much brainstorm in a lot of ways. So try not to hold yourself back from like,
In a perfect world.
in a perfect world where all the grants align and we've got the
And
correct
Tivoli was flush with
staffing
money.
Okay.
and the tax, base keeps going up and whatever,
But
Yeah.
also including the projects in the LWRP makes it much, gives you a great advantage in terms of securing state and federal
Exactly.
funds
So that's
for
the-
the projects.
Right,
So
that's the
really
whole reason to
important.
have them in here and then to even prioritize them, because then when we go out for a grant or something, we can say like, well, like, whatever, enhancing the stewardship of the historic resources was number 5 ranked in our LWRP, and this is why we, should have. Did you have a?
Will that funding include funding for future maintenance to keep the projects in working order going forward, or is that just funding to build them in the first place?
Usually grants are just to fund in the first place, but I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. Who knows? Sometimes you get grants then to fund maintenance. Yeah. For sure, like that is part of why it's important to vote in every village election so that you can trust your leaders to make good financial decisions about how to maintain our projects and go forward. So, I don't know, do you have anything else, Joel, about maintaining or?
Well, yeah, I think, this is a great village, but we are small and our resources are limited. So I also think if we want to be realistic about our next 30 years, in addition to dreaming about everything we want, which is a great thing, we should be realistic about our capacity to achieve and maintain them. That is an important thing, right? If we build some beautiful park, but we can't maintain it, so I think you raise a good point that we should all be aware of, and it's not to hold us back, but, there's an awful lot we're trying to just stay on top of that we already have, right? So, and I wanted to add one other thing I forgot to say at the beginning, which is another great reason to have one of these LWRPs is it protects us, the village of Tivoli, against larger governmental bodies or companies, corporations who want to come in and maybe impact our land use in some way. Well, we get to hold up an LWRP and say, wait, in the eyes of the New York State Department of State, we have said in this document, which is recognized by the state, that we care about X, Y, Z, and this project that's being proposed by, giant evil corporation conflicts with that. And that does hold weight in the eyes of the state as they're evaluating things. And this came up most recently, that was a hypothetical, big evil corporation, but this came up most recently when Amtrak was proposing a lot of gating and fencing along here. The communities that had an LWRP were able to sort of say, hold on, slow down. some of this stuff doesn't fit with our access that we've articulated. And the communities that didn't have one didn't have as much weight in the eyes of the state, so it's important.
If you look at the document, you can see that almost every project has ideas about ways to achieve that priority that don't really cost money. It's more about, maybe volunteer time, but maybe changing some zoning or getting the tree committee to do a certain thing or whatever. And then there's of course something that might cost money. And that's written kind of flexibly to say first of all, if you could do certain things in year 1 and you could then build up to getting a grant or whatever to do something else in year 10. And also because we don't want to lock the village into anything. This doesn't lock the village into anything. It's not a document where the Department of State is going to say well, you said you would, whatever, do that thing, you didn't do it, It's more about setting forward our priorities, helping the village board plan, that kind of thing. Did you have a question over here? Or comment?
So Joel, for instance, was talking about item 9, right? Protect the scenic gateway of the village. That's something that we should, if we care for that, we should put that in the document. Not that we're going to spend money to do that, but if somebody comes in to destroy the look of the gateway to the village, we have a document that says we don't want it.
Yeah, and if you read, for number 9, let's take number 9 as an example. It talks about, first of all, the idea of the village will continue to work with the town to preserve a defining town and country development pattern and protect Tivoli's scenic gateways. So a lot of the scenic gateways for Tivoli are actually in the town. So it's kind of interesting, right? If you think about it, a lot of the approaches to Tivoli are not Tivoli. They're in the town of Red Hook and they're often on state roadways or county roadways. So it requires partnership, right? Particularly entrances to the village from Kidd Lane, Stony Brook Woods Road. On the next page, actually that's all it says. So it doesn't even it doesn't really say specifically, right? But is that a priority? I think most of us would agree, yeah, we don't want, I don't know, a big developer to build something right there or do something weird at the intersection or put up weird signage or that kind of thing. So it's a little bit open-ended. Maybe that would be a section where your group might say we're concerned that this isn't detailed enough and we want a little more specifics, or we think this is a very high priority or this is not a priority, So we're open to your feedback about.
So that's an area where we're not necessarily spending money, but we're protecting ourselves.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Same with planting trees, there's a lot of stuff in here that maybe it costs a little bit of money, but it's a lot of more volunteer time, partnership, that kind of thing.
Will we get into these in detail in an additional session tonight? For instance, the protection of water quality, how do we do that?
I think what we should do is probably get into it in some detail in your group, and then we'll come back together and we can unpack each of them as they come up as a priority. Yeah.
Will each group have a person who knows what's going on?
Yeah, we're gonna have a committee member. Great question. Yeah, nope, we're all gonna leave. Good luck. We're gonna put a committee member in each group.
Okay, good.
And so we'll kind of help you a little bit along the way. And then we'll come back and talk about it. So
We should address the entrance to the village and its appearance and the nature of it.
okay, so you guys should get together, make sure you're in the same small
Well, it
group.
needs to be locked in concrete, and I don't mean literally, I mean figuratively. Before there's a gas station that you have to drive through.
We try that.
Well, the town has outlawed formula businesses, as you know, Harry. So
Yeah, but you really have to drive this pipe deeply.
Code for.
okay.
Well, part of this chapter is also about land uses. So these are the projects, but there will also be discussion of the actual land uses. And we have noted that a number of people have said they don't want a gas station. The village currently does not allow a gas station. So the recommendation in this document would be to continue to prohibit, gas stations or uses that can, whatever, pollute and so on. So if you have, land use suggestions, those are also welcome tonight.
You're going to allow 20 stations where you can charge the battery in your car in a row down there?
You know what, that hasn't come up, I'm glad you raised that.
I
Make
was
sure to
just-
list
That's good
it
for
in your
climate
small
change.
group. I'm not
More
sure we put
charging.
electric
Yeah, more
charging stations, so make sure you put that in your group, Harry. I think we should break that into, like, go around and look at the things soon and get to the small group discussion. Any other, did you?
I just think we should move along with the evening
Yeah.
structure, because clearly people are ready to dive in and start talking about real stuff.
Yeah, okay, so why don't, like, make a little spot for your small group, like, just kind of do, like, basically where you already are in the room. Go around, look at the word clouds a bit.
Am I in this group? Is it?
Yeah, you can go.
So now maybe kind of, yeah, maybe this is a natural grouping for you guys. Look around a little bit if you want to. Yeah.
That's okay, I got time.
We own some of this.
Well, I think,
Some of the housekeeping.
Another one, 'cause I think we have 4.
The channels are.
That was great.
Shared Street, I think is pedestrian and bicycle. Yeah.
Yeah, the yellow is, right now it's comes here.
There's my.
I love that. You're at the mention.
Oh, yeah.
25.
And that's a cheap too.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's the thing.
Land
It's in the works. We did. What do you love? The loop, which is separate from walkability.
I would like to see more, I would ditch the car if they had more, loop more often. And even a small one up there.
I'm too old to deal with that.
A smaller one.
Like a shuttle.
Oh, yeah, right, so you could go back and forth. Yeah, no.
My car.
Yeah. You know what came up a lot last time was the idea of benches on the loop. That, if there were some out there, you could look out at the field and, people could, like maybe there's one at Eleanor, the little Eleanor monument, like 2 more, and then a lot of people talked about that.
If we go up North Road and around, I have to visit Eleanor. If I go the other way, I'm not tired.
Yeah, by the time, so, but the frequency we didn't sort of, but I love the idea of
Oh, that would be really great. I know that property there.
see how big it is.
How you doing? Good, yourself?
I'm shocked.
Do you know why the sign is down at Lane Hall?
It was hard on
Why
the
do you think, Sylvia? No.
I mean, at least they did it late in the season, so it's not as bad. Nobody's nesting.
I'm surprised it's squirrel.
That's how I interpret it. I always said it's squirrel.
You're not allowed to walk that way.
They do that to keep it in all fields. So, to keep it in all fields. So if you don't do that, you can start to recession and you'll get 20.
Yes, I need an official answer.
So we're both.
What's our population?
So I'm saying I consider it a bad time.
Well, yeah, it's Probably, at least 50 kids. We have more than one school. Oh, yeah, we have.
I'm not defending that. Trying to use growing there because it's a swamp and we just can't take it across and go fishing. But I don't know. They don't have much to do.
I wonder if they have any duplicates.
Well, there's more of it.
It does, but in that spot, they're study that one, and it's actually, there's a reason it's right where it is, so I'd love to have them cut that, but I don't think they can.
I go look at the next one.
Yeah, they,
It's not gonna grow.
I guess I'm grateful they don't have it.
Well, yeah.
No, they do it about every 5 years. It's been a really long time since they've done it.
Oh, but they do mow.
Not that field.
Yeah. They cut that, she wanted to get some
You
seeds.
could, I'll owe you a really nice dinner if they mow it next year. It's been really very educational.
That was one of my.
You're right, you got it, yeah. I just walk by there every day.
They cut that on willow trees. Yeah, it was very
I think we're trying to keep it clear.
One of the pieces,
Across the street from the.
one of the pieces actually goes out.
Yeah.
Well, it was one of the guys.
I can't stand them, and they're invasive.
Which was my chair?
That one there.
Sure.
They're gonna join your group too.
We're just gonna make 2 groups? They're running out.
Yeah, join us.
Kate brushed your
It's an interesting idea. I have to think about it.
Businesses for locals?
Yeah.
What is this local?
To the clay kiln.
What would that be?
The one that
Well, I was thinking
piece of
about.
land, it's right at the bridge. Yeah,
It would be tiny.
yeah.
People that want that. This is White Clay Hill. We live right next to it. But and then they're going to Stony Creek, which is in this classy.
Yeah, it's
But
got
that says
both
White Clay
names.
Hill.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's called the.
Yeah, depending on the map you look at. We tried in the draft to keep it consistent, didn't we? I think we're trying for
White Clay Hill is.
Yeah, we're trying for that.
yeah, I like
Because that's
that.
the more historic.
I like also, sort of, yeah.
Stony Creek is just so.
We're expecting you.
If you insist.
Okay, so let's go, let's just go around and say first names and maybe what road we live on, so we're.
Broadway, next to the bridge.
And your names are?
Susan and Matthew. Just skip over him.
He's your liquor man.
Yeah, I know.
I can't drink.
I'm Harry Colgan. I live on, what road you live on? Clay Hill. lived here 22 years, built a house in the woods myself. So I've been a hermit for 22 years.
Well, not usually a hermit.
I was on the town board for 12 years.
We've been here 30 years last.
You're really
I'm Sarah, and I live on Woods Road, so I'm the outlier here. Geographically. And I've also I've lived in Red Hook for 15, but Tivoli just 3.
She has 3 really cute kids.
And I'm Felicia, so I know everybody, and I'm around the corner from Harry. Our properties join each other.
Yeah. The animals run from her yard
That's right.
to mine and vice versa.
All right, it's 7:40, so I'm just going to remember to take a note of your time in a little bit. Okay, so what we want to do is take a look at the projects. There's a copy of the whole thing there if you want it.
It's this one.
That's the handout. This is the full project.
So this gives them flashes that.
If you want it, you can have it. So there's kind of like a multi-page that.
Yep.
Well, I'm pretty much familiar with it.
So should we start with what stands out to you on the project list? I can take some notes on this.
So it is,
What projects stand out to you?
And also terrain. Of course, I'm all for the public park across the street from us.
Really not.
We just need, you have to know that we don't see many cars speeding down the hill, and it's right at the bottom of the hill, as we are. So it would be great to have a pedestrian crossway, like they have at the top of it. The street lighting, I'm definitely sensitive about that because the bridge is really bright. We have to put up blackout
Well, maintenance of
shades.
like
Our neighbors respected too, but anyway.
Take it down,
Streetlights
what
are,
tree shade take down.
Notice them when we walk up the street.
I think that should be considered village-wide, because street lights and on my road I can't see it because I'm back from the road, but there's a very bright light right in front of, and the person who lives across the street from me is very upset with it. He wants a Tommy gun to shoot it out.
Oh, yeah, well, I felt that way.
There are laws about. Yeah, and so on that one is,
Number
the walkability, number 7. Talks about looking at all the like, some of it's too high, some of it's too bright,
Or it shoots too much light.
too much light up and stuff down. So it just, if we kind of go through light pollution, all that stuff, so really do a comprehensive look.
It's when they put the new bridge in, they put the lights that they put on.
They're brighter, aren't they? Yeah.
So of the projects, which ones stand out as the ones that are most important? I mean, there are 17 of them. Are there certain ones catch your eye?
Well, it'd be nice to put them in some doable order. Doable.
So what stands out to you, Harry?
And I think one of the things we should be working on and have a well-established plan for is the waterfront.
Do you like the waterfront?
Because you have to keep niggling it, addressing it from time to time, and you have to be careful that we don't lose out on parking.
Yeah, so here's a question. Would you do the top down first or the
The park first. Park first and establish the parking so that it doesn't get. We had the state after we got that property. The state did some construction work on it.
No, down the new park.
Yeah, they put a maintenance building right in the middle of the piece of land.
Right, it's just a blank.
They moved it after we.
There's a place where they put
It looks like an outhouse. It looks like an outhouse. It was right where it was right across from the crossing.
Okay, so do we agree park before path? but path is like a second priority.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, do they agree?
I got the idea from.
First and then path.
Yeah, the park, I think, yes.
And does that seem like one of the highest priority projects or the highest priority for people?
Well, I think the watershed is really important.
Like the climate change part?
Well, that's, well,
Protect the
yeah.
water.
14 the water.
agree.
What aspect of the
Well, just the protection,
water? Water,
Well, this is like off the street, you mean, the repairing.
Right click down
I
there.
mean, the watershed essentially is how much rain do we get?
Right,
This just seems important. I don't know much about it, but I'm not a
Yeah,
hydrologist.
stormwater, so stormwater, so it's all about stormwater.
What a shared street is.
Protect the watershed part. And kind of like where does runoff go.
In the academy in the urban forest. And
Speaks to lighting, can I put in a pit for a light outside?
the fact that you bought it and served it.
Can we put that on here?
Yeah, we'll put that in the open. So in there for you, the protecting the watershed and dealing with stormwater issues and enhancing the canopy of the urban forest, what comes up for
What
you?
number's the watershed on here?
14.
Oh, I see.
Villages in Europe especially.
Susan, you had talked about the lighting.
I think that's more of a runoff issue.
Quality of life.
Yeah.
In comparison to state.
And you like the public park at the,
So it's a perfect situation.
yeah.
The area between, you know,
And then you also brought up the public access to the White Flake Hill with concerns.
so it's.
I know Mullen Arrow, one of the.
I don't think it's a bad idea, but there are issues.
With the safety of the,
Yeah, that plus, you know, the upkeep of it, that's like a big upkeep thing,
So
because
it really slows traffic.
put that road out there and, you know, leave all their stuff.
No,
None of them are Sarah.
For me, I think
Montgomery,
revitalize the rec park,
very,
in my opinion, needs to be somewhere up in the top 5.
I just think that it's only gonna get worse with storms.
And I know it's not like a sexy project, but,
We all know we set up like.
you know, traffic safety came up as a biggie. It did. Kind of big dreams or like big things you really want to see happen. So I do think,
You're talking about the four quarters of it.
yeah, the 19 intersection, like that's our main traffic calming needs. And then we also have
Actually have
like
4
the-
cars across,
Actually, where is the question?
you know, actually.
Where does the idea for having the shared street, where does that, is that the enhanced
walkability, I think, yeah.
So the enhanced walkability, yeah, so to me, like those kind of go hand in hand, the improve the state number 16 and then the walkability one, which really has so much to do with the other things we're talking about, the lighting,
This one block.
you know, the lighting, the trees, the streets, all that stuff. To me, like that one is a big one that really serves everybody well.
So that seems like certainly a theme for us, right? If we're going to say what rises to, maybe not ranking them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but top 5, it seems like that one comes into our top 5.
And Waterfront Park, I think we want in the top 5.
I think.
So not just,
Traffic has really gotten tougher and tougher on Broadway.
You know, when he first did the contract with the Redwood Police, they were here a lot. Now they're not here anymore, these people are back to like going through the stop signs.
Well, the problem with the street, it isn't wide enough, and you really have to, one car has to pull, I watch it all the time, you have to pull up to the side, it is, but it should be marked in some way. So you don't, I see people playing chicken all the time.
So if we already have, so if we're taking, sorry, I just want to keep us on track a little bit here. So we already got the walkability, we've got the waterfront park, and we've got the path to the park, to the waterfront. And one more?
2 more, actually. If we're going to kind of emphasize top 5,
Yeah.
that we would say, I mean, we could add some other ones, but I guess I would have a question about, is it sort of the watershed canopy, or is it,
They seem to go together as far as I'm concerned.
or is it the rec park revitalization, or it's more about traffic calming.
Maybe watershed and rec park, and then we do traffic calming in the next set of 5.
So watershed.
Protecting the watershed is something that's.
Watershed's important.
Well, yeah, but you have to think of it in terms of the state, not a tiny little town.
Yeah, but it's our build over our
Sticks out for me, it's affordability.
And then you're saying the traffic calming, like the 9G
Yeah,
intersection.
should be in the next set of 5.
So let's think about the next 5. So if the top, so right now what we have for our top 5 are enhancing walkability with a particular emphasis on the lighting from our conversation. Waterfront park, path to waterfront, watershed protection and revitalizing the lake.
These are big projects further down.
So now we're kind of thinking what would go in our next 5. So that sounds like it's the White Clay Kill Park. Would you agree, Susan? Traffic and the White Clay Kill Pocket Park.
Well, I'm hoping that traffic calming could also extend to all of Bill Friday, like, speed up. I mean, why? Yeah, we have to put up with
How many times have we almost been hit by cars, like big trucks?
Okay, so flooding.
I mean, there's a
I
lot
blow
of,
off the road.
there's a lot of tourists that walk by us, and cars are just whizzing by. I see mothers and toddlers walking, and cars are just going by 50 miles an hour.
They do go really fast. So enhancing the canopy of the urban forest, Matthew, you brought up, so
Yeah, I
that's in our
think
next
that's very
5.
important, yeah.
How do you do that?
Trees,
Trees, it's so important to plant the appropriate tree.
get rid of the English lawn.
Well, you,
Get rid of the lawnmower.
Comes up
I'm gonna find you
13
one.
and 14, so should I bring those together? Because it seems like stormwater is
Addressing,
Yeah, I mean, I think they're
addressing development that has to go forward.
Like where
I'm just wondering which
is really a lot more about stormwater.
and salt.
Well, I don't
Yeah, so I want to
I have
ask
half
Matthew
an acre
what he meant,
of
because I think we'd like to.
and the rest of it is wild. And I've got trees of every size.
When you talk about watershed, are you more interested in protecting streams and riparian buffers and that kind of thing, or the stormwater runoff issues?
The stormwater,
I'm not, I know nothing about it. I just know that it's
Because the site is coming
away from, microplastics.
Yeah, sure.
And
So that's
So that sounds like runoff, that sounds like 14.
It could be runoff.
It sounds like
Yeah.
protecting the watershed. Okay.
it shouldn't be runoff. Runoff should be part of the road
I
design.
think
Yes, right.
And road salt, I mean, the dependence on road salt.
Yep.
we want to say, we don't necessarily know.
Road salt, I mean, it's the runoff of the salt, whatever, that kills everything. It kills 5 of our trees.
I have to make my point about building, if you go to bigger projects, you guys will keep them going. The village,
Okay, so where are we
the village couldn't
keeping track of how many do we have?
We've got 8 right now,
Well, that's good.
and I was just skimming these, so we raised roughly half of them, and then the other half we haven't really done very much at all. So why don't I say the ones we haven't dealt with, and then we can think if one of the, if someone really responds to one of those, then maybe that goes in our next 5. Addressing the effects of climate change by thinking about sea level rise and flooding, so this kind of goes back to.
Sea level is way beyond those.
Let her read the list.
So does anyone, does that rise for anyone? Then we have extending municipal sewer service to some of the streets that don't currently have sewer service. That's to
It should
protect
be
the
like
water.
a B tier. I don't know, what do you think? I mean, it affects them more than it affects us.
Yeah, we don't have sewer, so.
You have sewer.
Yeah, there's a lot of places
They
with
don't.
septic.
It's Friendship Street and it's their
Yeah,
area.
I do.
And it's important also really for the watershed. Right, all kinds of-
It's actually a really big one for the water.
Yeah, so I think that's a B tier, like if we're thinking A, B, C, you know?
And then the state just changed it to 25. So Tivoli.
Hello there.
Hi.
Do a traffic study. We got-
We're just ranking our.
Okay, then we have ensure new development is built close to the village center.
I think that's important too.
Would you put that B tier?
I would probably put that B tier just because it's one of those things that's gonna go off of your priority list until
there's
somebody
development in your field.
proposes a development and you're like, oh no, not, you know.
What number is it?
That's number.
Example, I think it's number 8. I don't know who's proposed a development like way out on like Sandstone or something.
The field we were
The
talking
field,
about.
as opposed, I don't know that that would happen for many reasons, but let's just say, it's just more, you could, there's certain things you can do in the zoning if you read the detail of this project that encourage more development kind of in the small little pockets that aren't developed yet within the center of the village. Encourages people to kind of be more center of the village oriented when they're building a way to get over.
Rather than sprawling out.
Their pockets, so the field would be a sprawl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are the pockets?
There are pockets, I should have, we had all of our maps here today.
There's a pond across from the field.
I walked down to the river. There are some vacant spots, not too many. I don't think this map is the best for showing.
So let's keep going down. Protect the scenic gateways too then?
I think that's important.
Scenic gateways, that seems like it.
I think it's very important.
And historic resources.
Storage unit.
So far, what I've heard.
Right, no mini storage. Yeah.
What is that, Tivoli? It's Red Hook.
Well, that's why it says we gotta be in partnership with Red Hook. To, maybe it's that we get them to pass laws about it, or we are always stating our preference for it.
We should not allow storage units anywhere in town.
And then
Not
there's,
here. If you want them somewhere, put them in your bag.
number 10 is ensuring the community remains affordable.
Yeah, but they wanted to go.
Oh, yeah, that's.
We've already got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 7.
Well,
That's part of a strategy.
Right now, you have to have a manager, right?
you either have to be there or have to hire a manager if you're not
It's
there.
interesting that nobody
That's the way it is.
finalizing the downtown.
So
But if you crisscrossed it.
So is that, would you say if we're clustering these in sort of A tier, B tier, C tier, would you put that in the C? So not so.
What area are you considering clustering for? I mean, the other side of the bridge is 2-acre zoning.
You'd have to have someone go in and check.
Because you have to have the setback system.
So then we've got enhance the economic vitality of the village.
I mean, I think showcasing.
It's doing fine.
Not seeing a pulse from that one. Enhance stewardship of the village's historic resources.
It could be.
It's a C for me. It's important, like, all these are important, it's not like we're saying it should be on the list.
Good about it. We just gotta make sure that.
A lot of these things should be limited.
Well, it's a little outdoor lighting here. Is included in that.
Yeah, maybe that comes up in walk.
We are way over lighted,
No, but that's something they
from
suggest.
my point of view.
Then we've got protect the water quality of the protected streams.
That I think we said was more of a B, right, like a,
Did I put, oh, okay, did I put
I
that?
see you out there talking to.
I didn't put that in B, so we'll just have a long B.
Linear B.
Protect, protect, water quality.
What are you writing? Protect the what?
Only when this building is open.
Like, don't,
There's 6 in B.
don't dump tires and oil in it.
Yeah, I know.
How are we gonna do that? It comes to us.
didn't you read the document?
Anyway,
Okay, we've got,
I just know reality.
and then
Water
create,
comes from it 30 miles away.
But what can we do here to protect them?
and then this has create, and the last one is create an intermunicipal harbor management plan working with the town of Red Hook.
Do we have a harbor now?
Well, like technically, so if you look at,
Yeah, it would be created, but
okay, now what about creating public access to White Lake Hill?
the thing is that like,
That's
according
the
to the
Hudson
state,
River.
according to the state, only towns can have harbor management plans. And so the town of Red Hook already has one, but we want a stake in it, especially if we build our docks. For example, let's say town of Red Hook says, we're comfortable with people having motorboats that just like kind of go all up and down the river, and we might say, not within a 20-foot buffer of our dock, or some 50-foot, whatever, but the point is just, we would like to make sure that we're at the table when we create that. So that one is like a pretty easy
By clustering development close to the village center.
to achieve. Like that is probably not gonna take much, well, like a little bit of lawyering, but you know, it's not gonna, it's a volunteer.
There are a lot of
Very
waterway
doable.
rules
So I
that
think that could
exist
go really
in spite
anywhere.
of us.
It's a pretty easy win.
Yep, I'm putting that in C.
Yeah, let's put it in C.
One of the ones that,
They really already-
that's important to
already
me but
exist.
hasn't gotten put anywhere is to address the effects of climate change, because I think that gets at all our water issues and the stability of the waterfront park and all of that. So would we think that's A, B, or C tier?
They are global issue.
if you want to put it in
100
A.
feet above sea level, most of them. I don't know what we can do to stop sea level rise.
That's really more about stabilizing the waterfront, I think, if we're gonna put in a waterfront park, is to make sure that we're resilient, because the.
Oh, resilient against sea level.
Resilient against sea level, not trying to
Will
stop
never-
it.
Will never impact us.
Exactly, and then we've got, we're predicted to be wetter, and we already are wetter, so that's some of the flooding
A lot
and.
of this is more about flooding and drainage, which is really important.
Which is a big problem. It's a big problem
think it should be
here
up
with
in the top five.
with the roads.
Well, they
And we have
allow
clay
that.
soil,
They go out to
which has been,
disaster. And that's- You don't live in
I live right on Woodland.
the, right, well, that's the one I was wondering, he was further
I
upward.
live on, right near the sidewalk where it starts.
right in the corner.
Behind Brian Crana's house.
Oh, so it's
Like an edible forest or edible garden.
oh, this, night,
And I don't know whether
Speckers.
I don't know.
Okay, so maybe I could just quickly go through what we put in each category, and the way this sort of evolved organically was we have three rough clusters, with roughly by priority.
Hey guys, 2 minutes and let's wrap it up. Okay.
So in the highest group, what we call sort of group A, we have enhancing the walkability and being thoughtful about the lighting issues. The waterfront park, the Hudson, a path to the waterfront park, watershed protection, and revitalizing the rec park, and then we recently added this climate change resiliency into that, so now we've got 6 in that category. The second, in group B, we have calming traffic. We have the White Clay Hill Pocket Park, enhancing the canopy of urban forest, extending sewer service, development near the village center, and protecting water quality. And this is more about protecting the watershed itself, not
It just feels so unsafe.
Sewer is enhancing the canopy of the urban forest. And then in the last group, we have the scenic gateways, affordability, village historic resources, and the harbor maker. Does that sound reasonable to people?
Yep. I have no idea how we're going to make these 3 groups talk to each other, but it'll be interesting to see what people say. Because maybe we'll be mostly on the same page, and then we can haggle.
I just wanted to decide.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, I want all of them to get done too, so it's more just about
What about putting each one?
giving ourselves a little sense of what the to-do list priority should be.
Dam lawnmowers and auto.
So how much do you think it would cost,
Let's say-
it would cost to put a sewer on my street?
Is there anything, you're not here, if there's anything missing, that when you look at this, you're like somebody mentioned electric charging stations, we should maybe, I don't know, get
I
add
put that for what's missing, so.
Because we'd be affected by the park.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is like, and we could say this, but like any of these projects that would go forward, they're gonna follow the same
can't.
process that Tivoli always follows with public hearings.
You get to talk it out.
Yeah, talk it out, yeah.
To the left.
All right, should we?
Sure, gather your forces.
I'll be more of the facilitating convener as well.
Get the sheep.
Could you explain a shared street a little bit more?
Yeah, so the idea behind that is like, imagine either that somehow we could maybe widen the sidewalk area along.
I don't know how much
It's part of Broadway, so think of street painting day, basically. That whole spot, just on Broadway, from the Four Corners down to Pine Street. And basically make it like a one-lane traffic situation. And then you have just more of a sense of like, this is a slow area that prioritizes bikers and pedestrians and using the businesses here and sitting and eating your ice cream cone or reading your mail or whatever you do down there.
So it's not a pedestrian-only zone, it's an area that where all the signals for driving are, that it's a really slow down.
Signage, the trees, and everything just signal to you.
one-way, or
You have to
how
have
do
one.
they do it two-way?
There's a lot of different ways to do it. It wouldn't have to be. I think we'd have to come up with a whole vision plan around it. Like, so nobody in this committee like has a specific idea.
You gotta talk to the fire guys.
Of course, like fire guys, like all that stuff would have to be done.
It's like one of the least expensive kind of to me.
I don't know.
I think the planning part would be super expensive, yeah, just to get it, because you have to get it right. It's so important to the businesses to have traffic be able to come through, that there's
It's
plenty
also
of
the
parking.
totally the kind of thing that the state loves to fund potentially, so it's just something to consider.
If it were done really well, it could dramatically improve quality of life, but it has to be planned really, really well.
Yeah, because the cars are out.
Oh, yeah.
I hate yeah, they're all huge.
If people got used to the idea of having like a one-way flow on Broadway that went to one-way flow on Pine Street, so it's more of a loop. And then that would also make Pine Street a lot more safe and walkable, and that's like your pathway to the park. It's where the bus comes and everything, you know, so.
Yeah, there's no reason for it to be two-way.
No, and then, I mean, I know that it would create a lot of changes, and you're absolutely right, that you talk to emergency and the BART shuttle, and there's a lot of, it's not like an easy
That live on
thing.
Park.
I'm fine.
But like the reality is people already zoom through there, people already use it a lot because it's very, you know, there's the bus area, there's the park and everything, so. Anyway. Something to think about.
Okay, that's great, thank you. There was a lot of talk at the last, there was a lot of talk at the last one about trying to solve the traffic problems by widening Broadway, you know, like making, like eliminating
That
parking.
means tearing down the houses on one side.
No, this is more like if you eliminated parking on one side, then there could be bigger lanes and things like that. And one of the things that a lot of people who've looked at parking and road safety point out is that narrower streets actually slow people down. So if traffic safety is what you're interested in, then we should not widen that street. That's going to make people go
What
fast.
happened with the bridge? So the bridge got wide and everyone started.
Even
And
faster.
then they cut into they couldn't put the sidewalk street. They have that little cut. It's big, right? All right.
Alright guys, let's come back together.
Together. Oh, we have to put these back.
Trying to protect your camera here. Keeping a chair, defending you.
Front row.
But you're a front row person. All right, we'll go back to our table.
That was from the inside.
Sarah, are we going to collect these from the different groups?
Out of the truck, I heard him upstairs. Been there recently before? Never. What part did you go to?
All right, so what we want to do is, we're not going to come up with a finalized priority list tonight. I'm just going to say that right now. I think the committee's going to have to take the feedback and look at everything, and then we'll present it back to the public. But what we wanted to try to do is just get a sense in the room of what your sense of the priorities for these projects should be, and just kind of see where we're all at. You know, be interesting to see where people place some of these. And also float up anything that really is like a legitimate thing that's missing here. Make sure we kind of talk about that. If you're, just so that you know, so before you leave, I want to make sure we have like a priority list from each group with some notes. So if you didn't do that in your group, make sure somebody works on that while we're talking, because we definitely need that back from you so that we can reflect the public process. But what we could do is just maybe share out group by group. You can question or comment, but try to just listen mainly if you're not in that group. Does anybody want to go first? And you'll just share your priority list, like according to what your group talked about, and any explanation you kind of give. Anything that's missing.
I'll go for on our group.
Wow, meeting.
So I think we might not be able to say like this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, but like the ones that rose to the top, I'd say like our top 5. Were number 7, enhanced walkability, and we benches on the loop, lighting, all that. 10, affordability, affordable housing. Number 1, address the effects of climate change, flooding and drainage, and also maybe our group saw that there was a lot about resiliency and adapting to climate change, but maybe not much about how do we continue to take steps to retard the progress and onset. So carbon, less carbon type stuff. And public access to the White Clay Hill, which is number 3, and number 9, protect scenic gateways. And we went back and forth. There was a differing of opinions on number 4. And then things that were missing were, could there be public transportation over the bridge to the other side of the river? Because we've got public transportation through Dutchess County, but could we get connected to Ulster County?
That's a big initiative of Michelle Hinchy's to connect the municipalities, right?
Yeah. Okay. Group, is there anything, does that feel accurate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other rating that you want to do? Did you all feel like after number 4, the rest of them, you don't really care where they go on the list, or?
Well, I just think those ones I listed, 7,
Those are
10,
the most-
1, 16, 3,
yeah.
9 were rising to the top.
Okay. Great.
But we did say, hey, are there any of these that are ridiculous and they're low priority? And it didn't seem like any of them were, so that's a good job by the committee to, yeah.
Okay. Another group want to go?
Sure. We had a lot of overlap in our prioritized weeks. Number 1, address climate change. We put on one of our high ones, develop Tivoli Waterfront Park as well. We talked about affordability as being something that was very important to us. Michelle, I might need your help. Michelle took the notes. We talked about improving safety of Route 9G intersection.
I don't think that rose to
It didn't?
high priority. though.
Okay.
How about number 6, which was the revitalize the rec park?
Rec Park.
7, enhanced walkability. 9, the gateways.
Much like maybe the first group who just spoke, we thought they're all pretty important, but we did collect maybe 7 or 8 that we thought were a little bit more.
Yeah, the last 2 were ensure the community remains affordable and enhance the stewardship of historic resources.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Just to offer a dissenting view from that group is that my concern here is the affordability of all of these projects. And the idea of just throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks and hope that somehow maybe through magic, we get the money to do all this and maintain it properly. When the village already has extremely limited resources and is really struggling to maintain its own infrastructure already. So to me, this it's frivolous, other than to protect the watershed into the river, which of course is important for everyone to happen, but to add extra parks or extra walkways, extra paths, that the village can't maintain what we have now, to me, I'm sorry, I don't see the sense. It seems silly and frivolous to talk about such things when we can't pave our roadways, we can't keep our sidewalks in good repair, we can't clear the snow along Broadway like we used to all the time after big snow. The rest of this it's nice and it's all good stuff, and I agree with you all about it all being good stuff. But we can't do the basics at this point. How are you going to do this?
Yeah, well, we hear that feedback. But the idea is really that this type of plan, like Joel said, is important for the village to have on file so that we know when we do have the funds and the bandwidth and so on, which projects to tackle and how to go about it, how to get started. So, do we have another, we have group 3?
Yeah, I can do the third group. So there was actually a surprising amount of overlap with the previous two groups, I would say. For us, what rose, I think, pretty clearly to the top of all of them was enhancing the walkability and dealing with lighting issues. We ended up clustering all the projects into sort of Group A, Group B, and Group C, so I'm going to mention the Group A ones. That was sort of wasn't exactly 5, but that's what we were shooting for. So enhanced walkability was one of those. The waterfront park was one. A path to the waterfront was one. Watershed protection, and the revitalization of the rec park, and climate change resiliency. Those were the ones that rose for us. But we had a really hard time because we, like the other groups, felt that all of these were important and all of these were valued. Some people felt very strongly about one. Sometimes we had one person who felt strongly about something, but not all of us, and so it ended up in the B category, but it seemed very important to some of us. So.
Great. Anything else that anybody wants to raise that was missing?
It came up in our group that there was a lot of enthusiasm about charging stations. There are some, but more charging stations.
Which kind of goes with the climate, carbon stuff. So we could take another look at that as a committee and just see, I mean, what within the umbrella of what fits under an LWRP, what else could we put in there that would just...
That was something that came up as what's missing in our group as well, is just the idea of renewable resources and where they intersect here.
Well, so like our next steps is we'll take this feedback back to the committee. We'll sort of reorganize the projects list based on priorities, right, Michelle? Do you want to say anything else about what the next sort of phase would be? So we have one more public meeting. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, the next phase really is to complete the document, and primarily what we need to work on next is modifying the state coastal area boundary policies, specifying them to the village of Tivoli in particular. So it's the policy section that we'll be working on next, and then the next community meeting will be on the entire document. Okay, which is a very large document. So you'll be able to review there. You'll probably most particularly be interested in the inventory and analysis and in the proposed land uses and projects, which is what we discussed in the last 2 meetings. But you will have an opportunity again to comment on the completed document.
Okay, so that's why we wanted you to sign up with your email if you can on the back. That way, like what we did the last time too, is we just reached out to everybody who had been involved or done a survey, as well as sending out to the whole village. And we'll send that document back out. We'll schedule another public meeting. Is that one a public hearing or a public meeting?
No, it's just a public meeting.
It's just one more
It's not
public
technically
meeting.
a hearing.
So we'll just go over everything. If you have ideas about how you think we should like talk about it as a group, feel free to email them or put them down on the sign-up sheet, like ways you want to unpack that final draft. And we're not really sure what the timing of that would be. I mean, are we waiting on that state grant for funding, or do we have to wait on that to do that?
We need that grant.
Okay, all right, so
Our
TBD.
consultants have been working very hard.
Yeah, TBD, to be determined, but we'll let you know. That's all I've got for tonight. Do we have any other things to accomplish here? Are we good? Michelle, we're good for this part? Yeah.
Can we just please thank Sarah and Michelle for their incredibly hard work?